Alrighty, hey yo, what is up, Knights? Aegis right here with a DFO update video. Now guys, in my latest update video, I talked a little bit about a really huge update that happened in KDNF. If you guys didn't know, right now is the KDNF festival that happens every year annually in Korea, which is basically a time where the Korean version of DNF or KDNF will release a bunch of information about what's going to be coming up, big stuff, throughout the year. So it's a big deal. Obviously, it happened at the same time that we got our update, which wasn't as eventful, but because there was so much revealed, I figured I wanted to talk about all of it. And I want to give a quick shout out to Jay here, which has been known on DFO Nexus to give us a bunch of anytime they do this kind of stuff, he does all the translation work, so I'm going to be looking through his post on it. I made a video previously about somebody else's post on Reddit. However, this is much more succinct and has a little bit more information and compilated very well. So shout out to Jay, and I appreciate you doing the translation for all of us so we can get some information. But guys, I just want to go through all of the stuff, and there's going to be a lot of stuff. This is going to be one of those long videos where I'm just kind of rambling my ideas on this, but guys, let's hurry up and start this because this is one long ass video, I can already tell you. First things first, we're going to be going in like chronological order here with the spoilers, but on the June 16th update, which is going to be really soon, we're going to be having, I say we're, I'm just talking about KDNF, so I mean, all the stuff that I'm going to be talking about might be coming over to DFOG. Stuff like this, like the seasonal server, maybe might get omitted, and I'll kind of try to explain that, why I feel that. But just know that everything is subject to change before we get it, and we're not guaranteed to get it. This is all KDNF kind of stuff, so don't get too excited about everything because, who knows, they might change it by the time it gets to us. But anyway, guys, first thing that they want to release is a seasonal server called God of Controls. And if you don't know what a seasonal server is, basically it's, if you've ever played Diablo 2 or 3, there's something called the ladder system, which is a seasonal thing. It's just however arbitrary long the season is, they have, it's the same game, except generally they like to soup it up with all kinds of like features, or in Diablo's case, it's a matter of getting your buff, or your drop rate massively increased, and you could just gear yourself out. Kind of feels like a test server where they're just kind of, it's made to have fun. It's not a real server, and by the time the season ends, they're going to be wiping everything and then starting over with maybe new rules. And as far as I see here, a lot of the bullets, I won't go over all of them, but you can see it's not the DFO you know and love, okay? It's going to be all monsters are stronger attacks, and then you can recover your health with some over-counter hits and stuff like that. You're going to be having new skills that you can avoid attacks with, which we don't really have avoidance skills right now. And then you have like this action gauge, like what is that? So you can strategically use your points, or evasions, like explosions and stuff. I think down here, you're like, after you clear every room, you're going to be fighting a named monster in like a 1v1 type battle kind of thing. I mean, everything has changed about DFO, right? And I think they're going to be simplifying it, like quests and stuff. Like they don't even want you to do that. They just want to focus, like no quests. You just want to fight, and then you go through the dungeons just by like clicking on one thing, and then you're right into the action. So to do that, you're also going to be giving a lot of experience for faster growth, and it really does feel like a test fun server, right? So you get to experience everything and get right into the combat, no quests and everything. But just remember, it's done for the purpose of it's probably going to get wiped after the season's over. A lot of extra stuff, like they're taking out the Explorer system, they're taking out assists. Why am I looking at Morgan Freeman's face? I went all the way to the bottom of the page by accident. You got they're taking out things that would make this easy, such that account storage, your Explorer system, auction hall on the account store. Yeah, everything is just going to be kind of streamlined here. They don't want you worrying about having multiple characters, leveling multiple guys. Just stick with one guy and then try to experience this kind of seasonal server. So I don't know if they're planning on making the drop rate increase bigger because there is no auction hall and stuff like that. Maybe legendaries will drop off of normal mobs, legendaries and epics, because you can do that in a seasonal server. And if there's no trading involved, I would imagine that to be the case, or you can just get really good gear really easily. So seasonal server, what do I think about it in general? I think it'll work, honestly, in KDNF. Their player base there, two reasons, much larger than DFOG's. And the fact that, this is the kind of bonus content that you have. if you're already kind of like at the end game and just looking to start over, I guess you could say, because, you know, honestly, DFO's a MMO type game where you progress really slowly and continually over a long period of time. This right here, the seasonal server, seems like a distraction from that, right? It's just like, oh, here, you want to just have some fun in this like test server kind of thing just for a little while, just for the season maybe. You worry about that, and then it gets wiped, right? So it is going to be some bonus content, but it does kind of feel like maybe it won't succeed as much here in DFO because, again, we don't have a lot of players that are at that level where they can just afford to, oh, I don't have to play the main server because I can just play the seasonal server just to have a little bit of fun. And again, you know, anytime you spend here is just time that you're not spending in the actual server. So I kind of feel like maybe a system like this seems interesting, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go through the lengths of just not bringing it over to DFOG. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people would have a terrible problem with that. I think it'd be interesting to see videos and stuff of how it works, but actually playing it, I don't really have too high hopes on that coming over here. Honestly, so that's the first thing that's going to be coming on the June 16th patch. Like I said, it seems interesting on paper. I'll be interested to see like videos of it, but I would not be surprised if it didn't show up here, just for those reasons that I mentioned, though. But guys, just a week later, I think we're talking here, just a week later, they're going to be dumping out these updates. So the next thing that they're focusing on, and they already have all these things scheduled, who knows if they're actually going to follow this schedule. And you could probably, you know, we're really early on this, like this is coming in a couple days kind of thing, and then this is like next week. So you can probably see some videos of this. Like, I'm making this as soon as possible. By the time I put this out, you guys have probably already seen the epic reworks in action, or at least in the test server, and all the other stuff like we'll go over. But the first thing is the Anton Raid rework. Now, we don't have Anton Raid yet, but I'm assuming, just kind of doing some preemptive guessing here, is that by the time we do get Anton Raid, we might have the Anton reworks that they're planning for us, which would be super awesome since we don't have to deal with the bullshit, right? They're cleaning it up all around, a comprehensive cleanup of Anton rework, and it comes with it so many other things like character rebalancing, item rebalancing, and stuff like that focused around the Anton Raid, which right now is, if you didn't know, KDNF's endgame content, although, as we'll explain later, it might not be the final endgame content anymore, but still, everything is going to be focused around Anton, any kind of reworks, nerfs, buffs to items and characters. So, but right here, what we're going to be having first is an Awaken Anton, which, to me, as I read this, is a new dungeon Anton with Anton Raid monsters and pattern, but it's lower difficulty. So what it basically sounds like it's going to be Anton normals, which we do have in DFOG. It's going to be Anton normals, except the plus version of that. It's not as hard as Anton Raid, which requires you to have 20 members to complete or even join an Anton Raid. You need 20 players to join. This is just 4 people, and you're going to be fighting Anton Raid monsters, and you'll be able to get some like savior weapons, which is also known as Anton weapons. And raid drops as reward. So basically, it's like, I like to think of it as the middle between Anton normals and Anton raid. This Awaken Anton is just like the middle ground, whereas if you're not strong enough to get into the Anton raid parties, I mean, those feel really limited because you gotta like coordinate and try to make these awesome like 20-man parties. Well, most classes, you know, are getting left out with that. So there's this nice middle ground where like, yeah, you only need 4 people, and you can still get a lot of the raid rewards without trying so hard to coordinate this big fucking 20-man party, which is awesome. I think there should be a middle ground, especially for players or characters that are just not up to par to make it into those big 20-man groups or get accepted into the grace of the 20-man parties. But speaking of the Anton weapon, the farming is going to be reduced, they say, by half. So time spent will be, if you're just crafting it through the Anton raid rewards, you'll spend generally half as much time as what it is currently, which would be awesome for us since grinding this kind of content, you know, twice as long just seems like a really daunting task when you know it's going to be nerfed to half later. So you'll get more Anton soul pieces, higher chance of getting your savior weapons, and then I believe, at least later on, what's going to happen is actually at the developer notes down here, they're going to be going into much more detail on that. But basically, you're going to see that even if you disassemble Anton weapons that aren't for you, you're going to get more Anton soul pieces so that you can craft one that is for your class. So a lot of just ease of getting your better gear and not wasting all your runs and just hoping on RNG. So you can craft these pieces, and it does seem pretty awesome that Anton's getting some leeway in terms of actual dungeons and then the rewards for it too. There's tons of other balances around that we'll talk about in a second. PvP mode. Now this is interesting. At first, the first video I made didn't explain this very much, and this one is not all that explaining. But when you get what happens is you select 3 characters from the same server and a team name to form a team, and this character is I guess you get EXP per all characters, and then the mission will be only given to the representative character. And you'll be matching through GP, which is like the new RP system that we have. So I guess that we have currently, and then you go out into just straight up war, and then you get to choose from 3 different characters. Now it's not clear whether or not these 3 characters are because it says from the same server. So is it your own characters, or you're bringing your own characters into battle? Are you teaming up with 2 other characters and then beginning the all-out war? I wasn't too clear on that. It just says 3 characters, so maybe it's 3 of your own characters. So you pick your 3 best characters and then you bring those out to fight. I have no idea, and it doesn't say really what all-out war is. I mean, is it a PvP mode? Is it like, oh, here I go again with the Morgan Freeman? It's because I keep hitting reply. I'm sorry. I'm not really sure as to whether or not this means, if it's going to be like a big group PvP kind of thing. It does mention something about 3v3. So just imagine you're picking 3 characters. I don't know if those are your own characters or if it's a team of guys and you're just going to be going out to all out war. Again, we'll probably definitely see content on that for people trying that out. And I'm not really sure. I mean, generally, the team PvP and even, right now we have the captain system, which is like a relay system 3v3. And, those are generally kind of bonus stuff in comparison to what the 1v1 scene is in PvP. I mean, 1v1 kind of dominates the scene right now, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, it'd be nice to see some of this this new content, and it'd be fun to try it out and maybe have a new leaderboard for that, but the 1v1 scene still has got to be a big thing there. So they don't seem to, as far as the updates go, they don't seem to be addressing PvP very much aside from changing a few things and adding some new modes. And there's going to be a new PvP season, which is a much bigger deal in KDNFs, considering that game's been out for like more than 10 years. They're on season 4 now, and we're still on season 1. So again, not a big deal to us, but just interesting to know that. Anyway, update 3 is the character rebalancing. Again, as I mentioned, the developer note is going to be covering these character rebalances much more detail. And in fact, we'll wait on talking about this more when we get to the developer's note, but just 3 classes right off the bat are going to be getting adjusted a little bit, and those 3 classes are going to be like the poster boys as to what they're focusing on the nerfs and buffs, really. And there are going to be, actually most of them are just buffs, so these classes are getting buffed. What's getting nerfed, on the other hand, is the Magic Cataclysm. Everybody knew this was going to be coming down the line. They've mentioned it like, I don't know, 100 million times, that Magic Cataclysm. They're planning on nerfing it. They finally did it. They do have the like here in the developers, so first thing that they talk about is what they're going to be planning on doing that. We'll look at that later. And the classes that are affected most by it should be getting buffs, in Weapon Master especially. So, like I said, the Weapon Master, Battle Mage, and these 2 will be poster boys for what they're planning on changing. Most of it is going to be stat buffs and the defense debuff rate. So Weapon Master has a Iron Strike skill that is like a massive debuff, makes Weapon Master become a support class. They want to do away with that. They don't want classes that have flat defense reductions to exist. They want to remove all those classes that do that, and they want the Weapon Master to be the DPS that they have always intended him to be. So they're going to be buffing him up instead of giving, defense shredding, or instead of giving just raw stat increase like the Battle Mage. They want to try and give people skill damage or crit damage, something that will increase their damage and scales well at the end game. So again, we'll talk about that. That's kind of their approach to a lot of the changes that they're having. Now, speaking of buffs, with these classes, these 3 classes are planned on getting nerfed. They don't have specifics on what nerfs that they're planning on doing, but definitely they're going to be hitting their damage in some way. They don't actually explain. They explain why, but they don't explain what. So again, expanded in the developer's note, so we'll look at that, which is probably going to be much more in detail to what you're probably looking at. But aside from that, you can expect all those things coming on June 23rd. And that's going to be lasting for the longest time here as we wait until July, which is when we're going to be expecting all of the male mage subclasses. Now, Jay here doesn't have any pictures, but the other posts on Reddit do, so I'll just show you guys what the pictures look like of the new subclasses for Mage. We got 3 of them, which I think is important to note because these subclasses are actually add up to 5. I could have said this better. We have 2 male mage subclasses already, and we were waiting for other 2, but then we were surprised when we were introduced to 3. We got Blood Mage, Swift Master, and the Dimension Walker. And probably a better explanation than just these pictures is that we have a small, very, very short preview video that I want to play, and hopefully it will show you guys maybe just a little taste as to what these classes do.
자, 피를 흡수해서 힘의 근원으로 활용하는 마법사 블러드 메이지가 기다리고 있고요. 바람을 제어하는 기동 전투형 마법사 스위프트 마스터입니다. 그리고 기이한 차원의 힘을 다루는 컨트롤형 마법사 디멘션 워커가 추가가 됐습니다.
Alright, guys. Now those are the 3 subclasses in action. I'm gonna go back a little bit, maybe give a little bit more what I think about it. Blood Mage, his concept art looks cool, and I want to mention right here that the art that we just showed previously is indeed concept art. So if it looks a little weird to you, especially this guy looks like super derpy, I think it is concept art, so we can expect better art later. But at least we have the classes and what they're intended to be doing, and the sprite work already done. And he looks really edgy here. I do like this Blood Mage look right here. Definitely seems as though he is like your generic blood type of character. You have like Vlad, or you know that guy in Dota. You know, he has a big AoEs, he has blood pool attacks, and big AoEs is a pretty big deal here. He seems to also be recovering. I don't know, kind of berserker style where he gets these orbs of blood every time he hits an enemy. They seem to be recovering his HP or giving him some kind of buff. So he's draining everybody's blood right there. So I have no idea how that system is. He doesn't seem to have any extra bars on his UI. So maybe maybe it's actually recovering his HP. Doesn't look like he's actually gaining anything for it. But who knows on that. These are preview videos. Again, we have no idea on these classes. And more importantly, I want to just stress that these classes will probably going to be the first thing that people are going to be looking at in the test servers once they actually release these male mages and their Second Awakening. So expect to see some videos. If you're staying on top of this, expect to see some videos on all 3 of these classes and all of the skills that they have later. But, you know, this is kind of just speculation. I really like the Swift Master here because his animations look freaking awesome. He's kind of like the freaking Avatar here, and his animations look really smooth and big AoEs. So that was along the lines, the Wind Master, of what I was expecting with Male Mage, honestly. I felt like he was like Glacial Master, like focuses entirely on water damage. Well, Wind Master here seems to focus on like wind damage, I guess, which isn't really an element in DFO, but you know, it's just focusing around this element like Airbender, Avatar kind of status. Anyway, Dimension Walker here, I'll just mention. A lot of people have been quick to call this guy a summoning class. I think it's better to call this class a Necromancer type class because Necromancer is not necessarily, I don't want to say a summon class like Summoner or Chaos. This guy's more like Necro's more like a partner class. You summon 1 or 2 partners, and they're the only summons that you have. And so this class seems to have that feature as well. As we look here, he has this summon right here, which is kind of like a Lilith type character who has like a witch, and she's shown up every time in every room. Now, another thing of note is if we can bring up, if you can see right here, this guy actually does have a UI bar at the bottom here. It's like a gauge that has like a crystal at the end. Kind of feels like the same as something you'd see in Marvel vs. Capcom, where you know you're building up your super meter, then you could use your super meter. Who knows how it actually works? But he does have a gauge here that will probably augment or make some of his skills really, really powerful. So the difference between this guy and the Necro is he does seem to have like one summon only, and the rest of his skills, he is actually casting skills, which you know, Necro does as well, but look at how big the AoEs are on this skill. I mean, it is reaching the other side of the room, which is kind of like Valakur's range on Necromancer. Again, with this skill right here, Necromancer does not have any skills that are this wide range, and then again, the summon showing up again. So looks like it's the same one summon throughout and huge AoE. So this right here was just a preview video that was given during this interview, so that is all we got. But I'm a little interested on that one, guys, and we'll talk about this in a sec. A lot of male mages, you know, it's been a long time coming for the male mages, so, you know, I guess it's a cool deal that the male mages are finally going to have their subclasses, and they're going to have more than everybody else in the game right now, because all other classes only have max of 4 subclasses. This guy's bringing in 5, so pretty cool. They do have Second Awakenings already in the works. I think if we look ahead a little bit, if we're skipping like to a couple months after they release the Male Mage subclasses, they'll be having an entire month full of the Male Mage Second Awakening, which they already have planned and already have developed. So, you know, and the names of these, Vampire Lord, Aeolos, and Ascension and all that, which is cool. They already have their, like, it's not something that you're going to be waiting months and months and months for. They already have that out, so you know, you can expect to see that coming. But aside that, we skipped a little bit here, guys, along with the Male Mage subclasses, and I think that's all I have to say on those guys. If you're hype about that, let me know in the comments. But aside from that, coming in the same patch of July 14th here, we do have a Chronicle Farming rework, which is indeed a rework. Everything is here is like listed as succinctly as possible. It's not going to be as hard, and you're going to be like changing how the entry works. Right now we have an Exorcist system. And again, the Exorcist system will probably come up later again because they're planning on doing a lot of different things. But the Void Rift dungeon is going to be removed, so, which is kind of funny because I labeled it as like one of my favorite dungeons, and yeah, it was. I can imagine why they wanted to remove it. It's not really based on gear very much. It's just gimmicky as hell, and the boss especially. So they're like, fuck this, we're going to remove it. And so with the remaining 5 dungeons, they're going to be combining Chronicle 2 and Chronicle 3. They're no longer going to be separate anymore, and so that kind of makes a meta where there is no only OV2 or OV3 dungeons now. It's all going to be one, and what's going to happen is they're combining this dungeon into, it's not mentioned here, but I think I remember reading that it's going to be kind of like circulation dungeons where you form a party now, and it doesn't matter which one you go into. You're going to be going into the dungeon region, and then you're going to be given a randomly generated OV2 or any of these OV dungeons. There's not even going to be OV2 or OV3. And these dungeons can drop any gear in them. It's going to be randomly generated dungeon, randomly generated gear, which seems kind of odd to try and tell me that the time to get 9-piece set should be only 20 days without using any external sources here, like maybe resets, I mean. So they say it's going to be way, way easier than what it is now, because right now we have split into OV2 and OV3, and it can take you months to get a full OV set of this like really tedious grind. Now they're just saying 20 days. You do it for 20 days straight, you're going to have a full OV set, which is sick. It is insane. So they're not really going into details here. Again, like I said, it's going to be, I think it's going to be like circulation dungeons. You just go in there, you're going to be dropped into one of the 5 dungeons, and you're going to be getting loot just randomly. But I'm assuming to make this a 20-day grind, they're going to have to reduce the drop table to maybe only a few classes per character. Like that's the only way they're going to be able to do that, because there's tons of Chronicle items. And still having a 20-day limit on this is pretty absurdly low compared to what it is now. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, I don't want to a lot of this stuff, like okay, I can claim this about a lot of the stuff here, but I don't want to like force, like get people's hopes up on this stuff coming to us. Like, oh shit, why grind OV now when we're gonna be getting a dope ass Chronicle OV and it's gonna be easier and all this stuff. It may be a long time before we get that. So I'm not saying stop doing whatever you're doing in this game while we wait for all this other content. That's especially so when we talk about some of the item reworks and stuff like that, but you know, it is just something that's going to be coming down the line, most likely on our version of the game, and everything's going to be changed and easier. And you know, just don't stop what you're doing in DFOG, just waiting for these updates that may not come for a very long time. That's all I got to say on that. So it's going to be exciting stuff, but again, don't hold your breath like until it comes, okay? July 28th, which is a couple weeks after that, guys, we got PvP Season 4, which is something I mentioned earlier about the PvP expansion. PvP Season 4 is coming at this time, and they're gonna make it, now that they're actually increasing the level cap, this is actually important, that it's gonna be only one 85 character for PvP only, so 86 is gonna not be a thing anymore, and I guess I already spoiled it, 90 cap is coming out. So, Morgan Freeman. So, Morgan Freeman wants to show his face again. Okay, sorry, 90 cap is going to be coming out for PvP. And so, you know, I don't want to, we don't want to have too many OP classes, because how a PvP works now is you're not allowed to go past your second awakening tree and the skill points into them. So, and generally, 85 is okay scaling for that. I mean, if you went to 90 for character PvP, you'd probably be able to pick up all of your skills prior to the second awakening and max them. So it's gonna think they're gonna be locking the character level at 85 only. They're gonna be a new Siski Dojo dungeon. Don't ask me what that is yet. And you will now start using FP to gain experience and gold. So I wonder if that's going to be affecting like that, how much you'll be able to PvP because of the FP consumption. It's just going to basically be an alternative to grinding and stuff like that for people who are just crazy about PvP. You know, it'll be an alternative to grinding. You'll just get EXP and gold from just fighting other people, which makes sense. I understand that, but I'd only imagine that, you know, it won't be abusable at all, and it's actually just be a minor convenience for people who are, for some reason, PvPing one that are not at max level, which is another consideration, which is, at least in this game, that just doesn't seem like a viable option to anybody. So I'm not sure how much this is going to help. If anything, it's actually hurting people, because I can't imagine people who are actually using this as a leveling method when the level and the gear discrepancy is so big. Not to mention, you're getting a level 85 character for PvP only. Like I'm not sure what that even, like, how is the FP and stuff going to help then? Is it helping your other characters? Don't ask me, okay? 3 bullets is not a lot to explain the PvP Season 4, and it's not coming until a long time anyway. So we'll look at that later. But guys, you've probably seen this and you're like, ooh, what's this going to affect? Is this going to affect us? Well, we got to look first. They are going to be changing the Hell Party difficulty, which is now, you're not getting insane and hardcore anymore with, oh my god, thank the Lord, because this was RNG stacked on your RNG, stacked with your RNG, stacked with your fucking RNG. Because, you know, if you get hardcore, you're just like 50% chance, well, I don't know the actual rates, but, you know, yeah, have a half chance to get hardcore. And if you get hardcore, you're just not going to get epics, hardly ever. Whereas you're just praying to get insane, which is why people like me wait until we have events that guarantee insane, so I'm not wasting my fucking time getting hardcore. You get the idea, okay? So they're taking that away, and it's just going to be one difficulty now, which is a godsend. Trust me, it is a godsend, okay? On top of that, the epic drop rate is going to be increased, and the disassembling results are going to be adjusted. We'll talk about that in the developer's note, but you're no longer going to be getting Demon Eyes, or as in the Korean server, it's called Cosmo Soul, but Demon Eyes, and they're going to repurpose that. Trust me, this is going to be really important when we get to the untradeable equipment account sharing system, which does include epics, which I got to make a point right here, because when you disassemble epics, you won't get the Cosmo Soul or Demon Eyes. You'll get these epic souls, as they're going to be calling it, and those epic souls are going to work like the Transcendent Stones would work right now, which basically will transfer a unique item that you have on your character that's untradeable, and they'll put it into your account vault. So it technically is tradable or to your account. It's account bound. So they're going to be making that possible on all unique and above rarity items. You can use souls and other items will be required for the transfer, but then you're going to be able to put it into your account storage. Epics are included by this new disassembly system, expanded in the developer's note. This is serious, because I don't know how many times we've been told and arguing with each other that DFO is never, ever, 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 ever going to give us an epic transfer stone, right? They're never going to do it. And look at here. They're going to fucking do it. And I know so many people who are just gonna be super fucking triggered when they see this, because they're sitting about thinking about that item they disassembled on their alt. They knew they could have given to their main because they knew for a fact that we weren't gonna get it, and we're gonna fucking get it. So I mean, I don't know whose fault it is that this rumor that we weren't ever going to get epic transfer stones. It's going to be really exciting for people who have alts like me. And if you're holding on to an epic that you want to give to your main, this is serious. This is absolutely game changing and going to make gearing up a whole lot more, make a whole lot more sense. It's going to make having alts make a whole lot more sense. And so I'm just kind of happy that I did make a bunch of alts, and now I can farm hell with impunity. But again, this is a huge change that will be a little bit expanded on the developer's note, so we'll look at that. We've already covered this, guys. We got the Male Mage Second Awakening coming on the August 11th patch, which is going to bring, like we said, Vampire Lord, ALOs here, and Ascension. And that's going to be for the month of August, mostly, until we get to September, where we got the last update, which I already kind of hinted at. We're getting a level cap expansion. I keep saying we. I'm saying KDNF is getting a level cap expansion to 90, which is going to include 6 new dungeons, and this is on September 1st. Along with level cap 90, since it's a solid 5 levels higher than 85, the last gear range, we are in the new gear range now, and we have level 90 equipment added, including epics. So we do have new level 90 epics. If I have this picture up here, which is just a showcase of all the epics. You have some cool looking, like, 2 different crosses here, 2 different axes here. I'm not really sure if these are all, like, are these all the epics that we are getting? Like, does each class get 2 new epics, or are some of these, like, arena items? I have no idea. Some of them look fucking sweet. Like, look at these lightsabers here, and, like, look at this, like, Zombato here, 2 different rosaries. Looks sweet. We're gonna be getting tons of stuff. And tons of mod fodder for us, at least currently, when we can't actually use them yet. But all that stuff is coming down the pipe. Level 90 savior weapons are gonna be added, which is basically like the Anton weapons, except upgraded versions of them. So you're gonna be able to generally consider that the savior weapon, the Anton weapon, is the strongest weapon in the game, hands down, better than in any epic and stuff like that. So the fact that you can upgrade this as well makes me believe that they are still planning on these savior weapons to be the best in slot weapons for any class, and being able to upgrade them. Again, this is the kind of shit that you only worry about if you're raiding or doing Anton raid, or maybe if you're doing that Anton Awakens dungeon. So you know, something that you can work towards, and they're going to be added, and it's going to be easier to get. So now, I want to make this point here again about that point where I'm just like, okay, with OV2 or the Chronicle changes, don't hold out on us getting it. Again, with the level 90 equipment and epics included, kind of paints us in this bad situation where we're kind of waiting for content to come to us. And most likely the equipment that's going to be added is going to be the new best in slot item. So we're in this situation where we're playing DFO fully knowing that the best in slot items that may exist now are going to be outmoded by class or gear that's going to be coming out later. And again, it sets us up for failure while we're sitting here. It's like, well, why would I try to farm for the rest of my set? I only got 2 pieces of this set. I should just wait for the 90 set to come out whenever it does here in DFOG, you know, because it's probably going to be better, and you're not going to be using as much equipment to do it. So unless you're like already 4 out of 5 pieces, this looks more attractive to you, and it kind of, I don't know. I don't want to tell people to stop playing, wait for this new shit, but we don't have all the information on it. I really do hope that when we get the full information, and there are a few previews as to what they are. Here's again the picture. I do hope that it's not too broken as to whether or not, you know, they're outmoding our best in slots currently. Like, I hope it's just like completely outclassing all the 80 epics, or most of them way better than the 85 epics. They should be better, I'd assume, but again, I don't want to outmode the old epics either. So anyway, new farming system. We can sorry, this is a new farming system with the higher drop rate chance, and again, we're only going to be getting 1 difficulty on that Hell Party dungeon. But now the farming dungeon difficulty is now unrestricted. So this is, when they say farming dungeon, they mean like OV dungeons. They mean like ancient dungeons, you know, the stuff, the extra content. Now that content's going to be unrestricted, which basically means if you guys have played Diablo 3, there's something called the Greater Rift, which it has no difficulty level. It's not like, you know, easy, normal, Slayer, you know, that kind of difficulty anymore. They're taking that off, and they're going to be doing like the Greater Rift, where you can go in as high as you want until the enemies are just flat out too hard for you to kill. And generally what that means is much higher drop rate if you go in here in higher difficulties, which is kind of like a progression scaling method, right? If you get strong enough such that Slayer is no longer difficult to you, you can just keep going higher and higher to try and get that increased drop rate on these farming dungeons. I don't know what kind of benefits that will provide to us in DFO. I know in things like Diablo, it will literally like quintuple your drop rate and stuff if you keep getting higher and higher, and that's the goal, right? If you're gearing yourself to higher levels, you should have a higher drop chance of getting these nice things and manipulate the RNG just because you're absolutely OP kind of strength. So I'm not really sure. There's not a lot of information on this as to whether or not, you know, we're going to be getting drop rate increase, or what's the purpose even of unrestricting the dungeon difficulty. But it is going to be possible now, so Slayer is probably not going to be the hardest thing ever. In fact, the farming dungeon difficulties right now are kind of set. Like when we're talking about ancient dungeons, they don't have a difficulty. So I'm just kind of interested as to what they're planning on doing on that. It's just going to give some content for the end game players, truly end game players, to kind of flex their muscles a little bit, guys. But I wanted to mention this right here, which is probably the thing I'm most concerned about. They're going to be adding an item exorcism system, which is going to be added to all items in normal dungeons. Will have the exorcism debuff and buff system, which I think personally is going to be the worst change out of all of the stuff here. If you guys don't know how OV currently works right now, OV is the only region in the game that has Exorcism, and it works as a gear gate towards how much damage you can do in the OV, right? You need to have a bunch of Chronicle gear now because it's the only gear that has Exorcism parameter, and you need to have a certain amount to do proper damage. If you have less than the proper amount, the arbitrary number that they set, you're going to get nerfed by like a percentage of your damage. Or if you exceed that parameter, again, arbitrary number that they determine, if you exceed that number, you actually get more damage than you normally would. This is something that only exists in the OV right now, and now they're going to be adding it to all the normal dungeons as well, which personally I really dislike. It kind of made sense in the OV dungeons that they had this system just to ensure that you were geared enough to help you assist your party. It didn't really work very well because some classes, you know, probably would do better if they could wear their Halidom sets, but they're stuck using shitty Chronicle weapon or gear that, you know, they find in OV. So it doesn't really do that. And it really is just a limiting, you know, America, freedom, right? It's just a limiting feature, right? You should not be limiting people from doing hard content based on their gear alone, and this is what this is. It's a gear gate. If you don't have the proper exorcism parameter, they're just gonna restrict you in stats more so than you already are by nerfing yourself by going into a hard dungeon. It really doesn't seem intuitive to you know, the freedom of being able to go into hard content even if you're not geared enough. Right now, currently, if you wanted to go into Slayer difficulty, if you have it unlocked and you've earned Slayer difficulty, you can now go into Slayer difficulty on somebody who's sitting there with all white gear if you wanted to. I don't know why, but if you want to challenge yourself and you don't have the gear for it, you can still go in there because, you know what, if you're skilled enough and you can handle it, then you can do it. They seem to be gating that. They're gonna nerf you if you do that. If you try to go in there with only magic sealed, you're gonna get hit with an Exorcism debuff, which is, you know, it seems like they're forcing people to gear up when they shouldn't be even worrying about what kind of gear people are bringing into these dungeons. I think people are smart enough to know, hey, you can't join this Anton raid because you're sitting with your magic seal, or, you know, so we're not going to invite you to the party. But when you're talking normal dungeons, which is normal things, you shouldn't be gating people with the exorcism. I don't expect this system to be well received. It does seem nice that the exorcism buff is going to be applied too. So if you exceed that arbitrary number that they set, you actually get a buff. So it could work both ways. My characters are probably not going to be affected since most of them are geared out in like Halidom or something. so I'd probably get a buff all throughout. But I can imagine new players who are just like trying to experience the game are just going to be hit with like gear gates, and they have to worry about it now. So honestly, it really depends on what they set that exorcism value to. If all dungeons now have to have an exorcism value, they better not set that bar too high for new players, because you know it's just not going to be reasonable for them to get into any content without getting hit with some like 20% debuff or something like that. Anyway, that's my opinion on that. Again, this is just one bullet here of the many changes that are coming. I don't know if I really like it, but we'll see if that bar is set too high or not. And we do have item additional option enhancement system, which currently, guys, I mean, we have, what do we have with item enhancements, guys? We have reinforcing, amplifying, refining of the weapon. We can have enchantments on the card. They're adding another system on top of that, which is going to include something like slotting your gear and like putting souls into it. It's crazy. It's just another layer of things you gotta worry, layer of bullshit that you gotta worry about your gear. You know, did I reinforce everything really hard? Did I get my cards? Did I put this new enchantment system? It's just gonna be, it's gonna be crazy, man. So gear is gonna be getting another step in strength, and we'll just have to see how strong of the enhancement you're gonna be getting. But that's like legit 4 different things you could do to your weapons and like 3 to your armors. I mean, it's pretty absurd. Anyway, the last and final thing we'll talk about in terms of content expansions will be the Luke raid, which you probably saw this short picture here of this swole ass Luke here, which is just crazy, crazy looking. He looks freaking awesome. If you want to see the sprite work here, he has, I think that's him right there. He doesn't look as menacing as he does here, but you know, he's looking kind of crazy here. It looks kind of glitchy right here, actually. Does he have, like, another guy standing on his shoulder? Is that what's happening? Because that's not happening here. And, like, just a weird screenshot. They could have probably taken another one here. But that is the Luke raid, and it's going to be a 4-man raid as far as I know. It can be done with a maximum of 8 people. Sorry, it's not going to be the full 20-man raid of Anton, but it's going to be an 8-man raid. And that's going to be coming out on October 13th, which I think is going to be the only thing. Obviously, this is not too many details on this, but it is said that you're going to be getting all the Anton raid equipment as well as exclusive Luke raid equipment. So they have been working on new raids, and again, we don't even have the Anton raid, so don't expect, this is the very, very last shit that we're going to be getting, and it is not anywhere close to to the time that we're going to actually see that. So anyway, guys, this video is long enough as it is, and I kind of rambled on for a long time, so let's just kind of speed through here. We do have the epic items as I showed, which is going to be, they do have some of the epics already planned out as to what they're going to be doing. This Yodo Muramasa here is going to be giving 30% damage and a 25% damage of ignoring defense, which right now, it's highly indicative of an item which is going to be the best in slot already. These 2 different stats as it is massive. It's massive for a katana, man. 30% extra damage, that's raw, and then 25% that's reduction. That's fucking absurd. So really good thing right there. We got the Jubilant Spear, which is 25% crit damage, and then 22 additional damage, which stacks. This is stacking crit damage. Which if you have a crit damage buff already, you can get really high on that too. If you have a title or a pet or something that's giving like 10%, massive damage. And then this is mostly for obviously Battle Mage, but it's increasing the duration of your second awakenings by 14 seconds. This is massive spear. Again, we're talking best in slot type of shit. Soul Devouring Scythe. Not really sure on this. This one doesn't seem too crazy, but it does have the shadow additional damage on it, which right now currently the best in slot item, if you had Dark Gothic for a monk, is only giving, I think, 20% shadow damage. So right off the bat, this scythe is going to be the new best in slot, I bet, for the monk or anybody who's rocking hella shadow damage. You're going to be getting 25% boost just right off the bat. And you also have to deal with the NP consumption on your attack, but then you get extra magical attack as well. So this is focused around particularly the what is that class? Again, Avenger. I forgot about that. I forgot he existed. So you know, you're getting tons of magic attack and shadow attack damage right there. And then this one right here is just a 30% damage increase. If you can get it to plus 10, you're getting 30% extra damage, and you get 5% skill damage for every time you go past that. For again, if you get to plus 12, you're getting 10% damage there, and then you can get 24% damage here for refining your stuff. I mean, this is crazy stuff. That we're getting new features, even by, like you get basically for the halberd, you're getting effects just by enhancing your stuff, and those effects are fucking top tier again. So again, it's not looking good for the state of our old epics at 85 and especially level 80 weapons. They're just looking like they're getting outmoded. These are too good. So maybe that might be a case. It's like if you're looking for an epic weapon, there you go. Now you have things to look forward to, I guess. But okay, guys, the very last thing is the biggest thing to talk about, and I'm going to be going through this as quickly as possible since they are more or less details of everything we've already talked about. And, you know, I just want to touch on some of the points. If you want to read all of this, again, I'm going to put this in the description below. You could have read all this faster than all the time I'm taking to explain this, but just kind of want to talk about it. But first off, Magic Cataclysm got adjusted, which is a nerf to all the classes that used it. Yes, your basic attack is not getting tripled anymore. This is what it was before. 5% chance to triple the attack for 10 seconds. Now it's going to be a persistent effect that's only increasing it by 150%. So not necessarily the triple damage you're used to, but you do get a little bit. Basically, it's killing the item for the basic attack training. It's you know, it's just too big of a nerf. Right now, Magic Cataclysm is used alone. It's one of the few epics where you can just use it on its own and it's making the class. So it's going to be more, you know, tied to the set, but it's a nerf to the classes that use it single-handedly, but it's actually a buff to all the classes that don't, that actually use the Mana Vortex set, which is kind of good for me. I've got to be honest with you. We're getting a bunch of just raw stat increase in the attack speed, cast speed, and move speed, and then we're also getting +2 on our level 30 to 45 skills, which, I'll be honest with you, is nothing like any of the other pieces of the Mana Vortex. So it's really nice to have these kind of benefits where we're getting just raw stats and raw skills, and then you know, on top of all the other sweet stuff that you get from Mana Vortex anyway. So they're adding an extra effect right here. This is the new one. It increases the basic attack training attack damage by 20%, which is, I guess if you add them together, if they're additive, 170% in damage increase to the basic attack training. If you were able to get the full Mana Vortex set, which is, I guess, a nice bonus, but again, they are really killing the Magic Cataclysm being the be-all, end-all item for basic attack type classes like the Sword Master and Weapon Master. So it's a good buff for classes that didn't need the basic attack training, and then I guess it's manageable if you had the full set. So they're trying to like not kill it completely, but I kind of feel like it is kind of killing it. Anyway, so good for me. This is actually a buff for me. So sorry for you guys that are getting hit by it, but those of you who are getting hit are getting changed majorly. So Weapon Master, you're getting a new skill, which is going to be more, I mentioned this earlier, but they're trying to focus on how your kit is working, how the meta is right now. You're really a support meta right now, and they want to make you into a deeps meta. So they're giving you a new burst skill, and they're reworking the Iron Strike, which again, I mentioned before. You guys are like the poster boy of what they're planning on changing for all the classes, not just the ones that are mentioned here. The Iron Strike plays a high debuff priority as a support class, and they want to nerf that. Right now, you can just shred enemies' defense with just flat defense reduction. With the Weapon Master especially, you can stack it like 20 times, and it was too potent. So they want to take that away and instead just give you raw damage instead, which is what the new passive is going to be like. And any classes, there's not a lot of classes that can do that anyway, but they want to make it so that if there is a debuff, it's percentage based and not just flat reduction, which was too hard to balance around, and not a lot of classes had it. So yeah, you guys can be expecting to be just getting strength buffs, not debuff kind of stuff. You're not going to be support role anymore. Battle Mage, on the other hand, is a different kind of nerf, which is, I think, more comprehensive to all classes, since more classes are like this. But basically, strength and int buffs are a big reason as to kind of the scaling of Battle Mage, and all classes that rely heavily on strength and int. These classes don't scale very well at the end game because, you know, at some point these numbers start getting exponentially less effective. So they're kind of shying away from that. Battle Mage is a class that focuses on stacking these numbers. Strength and int is equalized, and then their battle groove, for instance, buffs up that strength and int. They want to do away with that. They want to just say, you know what, instead of like battle groove and multi-roll, they're going to be replacing those skills with just raw skill attack damage and crit damage, which focuses better on, you know, late game type scaling. Right now the strength and int buff is nice for early game content, but once you get to the like Anton content and you're partying in Anton raids with Crusader buffs, they're just not very effective. So you're going to be seeing a lot of those changes across the board. I think they're going to also be touching up on things like Necromancer, which focuses entirely on a strength buff build, or same thing with the Berserker, entirely strength based. Maybe Azura, I have no idea. But you can expect those changes coming along the line where their buffs aren't going to be just buffing raw stats. They're going to be trying to look more towards things like skill attack damage and crit attack damage. So aside from that, a lot of different crit changes. Mostly what the Battle Mage is mostly going to be getting. I don't know if Bug Mage is going to be hit or fixed with all of her Bug Mage galore, but her Awakening and First and Second Awakening are going to get buffed definitely. First Awakening, Tiana is going to be able to use skills up to the First Awakening cube skills, which right now you can only use basic attack, launcher, or a grab, and your chasers. That's it. And so Tiana is going to be really buffed. And they also, like I said, had that really OP epic that was giving people longer durations of those. So again, look at that. They're going to be buffing up First and Second Awakening, the Apostolized transformation. So like for instance, you won't require to transform into Tiana first. You can just go straight into the Apostolized, which is nice. So dumb how you kind of had to chain those together before. Again, kind of like the same with the Battle Mage. They're doing the same kind of thing with the Exorcist, who gets strength based off of his combat aura, strength and int and stuff. Anytime you get those buffs, they're replacing it with skill attack damage. Again, indicative of what they're planning on doing with this just raw stat increase. They want to do away with that and try to increase the damage. Things like his Awakening, like the Lurking Dragon and stuff, are just going to be faster cast. And then there's going to be a new conversion skill. This is probably the most important thing for Exo, which is basically going to make it so that hybrid Exos are going to be the prevalent Exo. Like basically what they're doing is they're adding conversion skill that makes all skills of that element type, that damage type. So if it's going to make, like for instance, all skills magic damage, or they're going to make all skills physical damage. So basically it's not limiting the tree into two different physical and magic trees. Now it's just like you can get all skills on the tree and it will do physical and magical damage, which is kind of serious. It's going to be, your SP cost is going to be hit really hard since they have so many skills, and there's probably going to be some optimal level builds, but you don't have to go down one physical or one magical path anymore, which is really nice. Aside from that, I did mention that these are all the buffs that they're planning on giving to the characters. Now we're talking about Nerf. Again, they were not very specific as to what they were planning on doing with that. Kunoichi, Summoner, and Chaos are just going to get hit, and here's the reasons why. So, you know, if you play any of those classes, you definitely probably do need the nerf, and so that's going to be happening. So the Crusader adjustment and the Raid Monster nerf, we kind of talked about this. The Raid Monster nerfs are happening in conjunction with the nerfs that they're planning on doing for the Weapon Master. The flat armor reduction is going to get hit. They're going to take that away, but in return to doing that, they're going to be lowering the HP of monsters and stuff like that. So, you're not going to be as reliant on a class like Weapon Master to do that kind of debuff. You have Crusader Synergy, too good for Anton Raid. Right now, I think they're mostly focused on the drastic difference in HP between the party members if you had a Crusader or didn't. And Divine Invocation going to get hit again, which is already hit before. They're mostly focused on this, whereas like if you have a Crusader, you just never die, and so they're going to be nerfing that ability, but at the same time nerfing the damage that Anton does as well. So I mean, it's kind of nerfing this kind of playset, so you're not relying on it completely, but it's also nerfing how hard the dungeon is. Again, another buff or another change that is solely due for the fact that you don't want to rely on one type of gameplay. You don't want to rely on a Crusader's HP drastic increase buffs. You don't want to rely on the Weapon Master's shredding defense, and so they're going to adjust Anton accordingly. Again, we've already talked about this, debuff skills and the party damage increase skill balancing. Again, they're nerfing the rate of defense down skills, and they're also trying to take away any kind of things that will shred defensive enemies. So like here, any classes who can do that, they want to kind of take that away and nerf the percentage of that. And skills that increase the party damage, they're nerfing on that too, which they've already been known to do these kinds of changes already. For instance, my knight, for instance, was hit with the disarm debuff, which used to cause a bigger debuff than it does now. My overwhelm caused a flat armor reduction rate. They're probably going to nerf that as well because they say it's just too effective. The stat buff rework, I already talked about this. Any classes that rely too heavily on strength in it are going to be, you know, because of the synergy with the Crusader, they're going to be looking at those and instead probably buffing up skill damage increases to try and make it so that you just are stronger at the end game, basically. Now looking at the specific Anton raids, again, I don't want to go over everything since we're near the end here, but they are actually making it, along with all the nerfs that they're having, along with all the other changes, they're having they're actually going to make it a little bit harder for us. They don't want you to use cheap consumables such as Ferris anymore, which was used to defeat the room, I forget her name, but the room before Mateka, for instance, was used. Ferris used that, getting a stun off. HP potion, which is like a 100% HP potion. Super armor pots, they want to take that away just to make it harder for Anton raids, because they said that these things were making it too easy for us. Okay, so the APC such as Ferris waifu was making raid too easy, guys. Ferris waifu, top tier waifu, obviously here. And again, here's the reasons why they're nerfing that. Again, we don't even have raids, so we're not even going to be able to experience any of these so-called exploits, but which I can see why they'd want to do that. Awakening Dungeon, again, this is going to be the middle ground between normal Anton and raid Anton, right? It's going to be, I think it's a 4-man party, and you can still get raid equipment like the savior equipment or savior weapons and stuff like that. Again, the same point that I made earlier is that hopefully this will be people who aren't ready for the Anton raid. This is kind of like the middle ground that you can farm up until you are ready for it. The Anton raid reward, they're going to just be making it overall easier to craft your savior weapons, your Anton weapons. You know, you're going to be getting twice as many materials. If you get one that's not for your class, you can unneeded savior weapons right here will be used to create condensed Antonium, which is needed to craft the weapon that you're actually looking for. So again, just making it easier, again, reducing, I keep saying again here, reducing the time that you need to get your Anton weapons by half. That's generally what is considered. So finally, there's an Anton raid retry function, which is similar, I think, to the OV system, where you can kind of reconnect if you disconnect. But there is a retry function now that if you fail for whatever reason, you can just, you know, maybe somebody disconnects and now you get fucked. Well, there is a retry system now. Because of this reason here, they're just like, well, some people are not getting invited just because they're scared that they might not clear it for sure, and they don't want to waste a run try there. So hopefully this retry will function as a fix towards that. Alright, last thing here is the buff and equipment switching related rework, which this is big. We haven't talked about this at all, but what they're planning on doing in the meta currently right now, if you don't know, a lot of the buffs that you have for your characters that act as snapshot buffs, which are basically when you cast a buff, whatever gear that you're wearing is applied to that buff. So for instance, if you have like a derange type buff, or you know, my knight, I have a war cry buff which gives me just raw attack damage. Well, now they're going to be making it so that if the duration is longer than the cooldown, it's now going to serve as an infinite duration for the rest of the dungeon. You don't have to worry about recasting it again. It's not going to run out anymore. So long as the duration is longer than the cooldown, it's going to act as a permanent buff for the rest of the dungeon, which is huge. It's actually massive, because now you know, generally what the meta is you have a swap set, which is only a buff set. You swap to the buff set, you buff up, and then you switch to your real set. That's how the meta is right now. Now they're just making it easy. You go into the dungeon with your buff set, you get all your buffs off, and so long as you don't die, you'll have the buffs on for the rest of the dungeon. And then you'll be able to keep your optimal gear for the rest of the dungeon, and you don't have to worry about it anymore, which is sick. Right now, it's just made tedious for no reason, because, you know, if you have a really like a snapshot buff that has a really low duration, you're gonna have to keep switching to your swap set and recast the buff and switching back. It's really just annoying. I know a lot of elitists will sit here and be like, oh, I was so cool by doing that. It's just really annoying. Now, I am worried about classes who don't have that. Like, for instance, I think Berserker actually has, his derange buff doesn't have technically infinite duration, because I think he has a duration that's a little bit long or shorter than his cooldown, so he'll have a little downtime on derange. So classes like that are not actually going to benefit from this because they're going to have to recast their skill again. So hopefully they look at those classes, because it'd be nice to be on Berserker and just never have to worry about derange anymore, but who knows on that. But guys, last thing, which is most important to me, I've seen multiple translations of this, and all of them have got me fucked up, because you guys keep telling me one thing and then I hear another thing. As long as Jay's translation, which I trust Jay's translations, he says that along with the epic rework in July, night weapon restriction will be lifted. So that is night as a whole. So right now, currently, if you play Elven Knight, you can only use Zanbato type weapons. Only. You cannot equip anything else. With Chaos, you can only use short swords. You can't equip anything else. And so there, it seems right here, as long as Jay's translation says, you'll be able to use all weapons on all knights, except lightsaber. Okay, you won't be able to use lightsaber. That's for Weapon Master. But as far as I heard, as far as I know, you won't be able to use lightsaber. But all weapon restrictions are going to be removed for the Knight subclass as far as Jay's translations go. I have seen other translations that said Elven Knight will be able to use bludgeon and katana, which doesn't make sense to me, because, like, I guess so they can't use short swords, or does that mean Chaos can't use all the other weapons? Who knows? I'm going to go with Jay's translation. Knights are going to be able to get this, their weapon restrictions removed, and they'll be able to use any kind of equipment that they want. Awesome change for us, because seriously, we were the most limited class in the whole game when it came to that weapon restriction bullshit, where everybody can use other epics. My guess is, you know, overall, you generally want to focus around that one weapon type anyway, because, you know, that's how their kit works. But it's going to be nice to have that freedom. Right now, you open an epic pot, and you have like only a 20% chance of getting something you can even use, whereas almost every other class in the game can use anything that comes out of the epic pot. So nice that it's going to be removed. Obviously really excited about that and giving us a little bit more freedom. And we knew this patch was coming for a long time coming now, actually, because of the we knew that they were working on the sprites for the Knights, so we knew this patch was coming. It's just a matter of when, and it's good that we're getting it. So finally, guys, last thing, I think I've been talking for like a good hour now. Jay's translation has been way more in depth than the last video. The last video was pretty long as it is, but guys, 80 to 85 epics are going to be rebalanced, as I already mentioned. We have got, you know, they're going to be looking at particularly items that are good in raid. So if your level 80 set or whatever is too good in raid, they're probably going to be nerfing it. Or if it's not ever utilized in raid, they're probably going to be buffing it. They're saying reworks because it could include buffs and or nerfs. So we don't know about the specifics on that yet, but that's going to be coming in the July patch, and hopefully. Again, I'm really worried about how good these level 90 epics are going to be, but anyway, hopefully they're not too big a discrepancy and they're still online with being some good items. But I mentioned earlier about the transfer system. Currently, disassembling equipment will give you Cosmos Stones, or Demon Eyes in our version of the game, but after July, you're going to be getting Epic Souls when you disassemble epics, and these Epic Souls will be used to transfer your epic equipment through the account storage, which again is going to act as a transcendent stone basically, which is legitness. And you can still, if you have epic souls, you can still exchange them for the 20 hell challenges or 100 hell invites, and you can actually, they're going to be acting equivalent to 5 demon eyes that we have currently. So if you, when the patch comes around, if you still have demon eyes or cosmos souls, you can still trade them for epic souls. It's kind of acting like every one epic soul is like equivalent to 5 cosmos souls, which is kind of a nerf actually, because right now when you disassemble, you actually get 6 cosmos stones instead of 5. But I guess now you're only going to get 1 epic soul. So maybe it might be a smart idea to disassemble all your epics now, so that when the patch comes around, you're actually getting a little 20% benefit. Ain't there, right there, ain't you? So anyway, you'll still be able to purchase hell challenges with the Cosmos Soul after the patch. So you don't have to exchange it for the epic soul. That's kind of how they're going about it. Epic souls are going to change the whole universe, guys. We're going to be able to make the epic stone. I mean, this is basically like an epic transcendent stone, ain't it? This is exactly what that is, and it's serious. It's game changing. I know a lot of people are going to be salty about that. I don't want to end this video on that salty note where you're sitting here thinking, God dang it, I disassembled something on my ult that I knew I wanted for my main because people told me that I was never going to get an epic transfer stone, and here it is in the epic soul. It's not really explained as to how many epic souls it's going to take. I mean, it could be an absurd amount when we finally get around to it. Like, oh, if you want to transfer that dethroned Kingster, you're going to need like fucking 70 epic souls or something like that, which is pretty absurd, but who knows what that number is going to be. It's going to be, I mean, they never make these things easy, ever. So it does sound really great on paper, but, you know, who knows what we're going to be expecting out of that. But anyway, guys, I really want to end this video. I've been rambling on and on and on, and I'm actually getting tired and my voice is getting raspy. So I'm going to end this video here. I appreciate you guys watching. Tons and tons of content here, and you know what? As I make this video, there's probably going to be more stuff added and more content in video format to check out as well. But I just wanted to give my opinion on everything, and I'm really happy about everything. I am staying up to date with the Korean version of the game, and I'm excited to see that kind of content coming here for DFOG. Again, don't hold your breath for all of this stuff, okay? Seriously, if you're waiting for the OV changes and you're just going to hold your breath and just ignore DFO until it comes out, you're going to be missing out on so much. You're just going to be falling behind and behind. So, same thing with the epic rework. Again, we don't know all of the epics yet. We don't even have info on if there's going to be any epic armor sets and stuff like that, but maybe, you know, epic armor sets is going to be a thing as well that you have to be considering. Again, don't, you know, if you have 4 out of 5 pieces, don't just stop farming epics because you know that other stuff is going to be coming out. You want to finish your sets and stuff like that. Hopefully you guys aren't too hit about the Magic Cataclysm change. You know, I mean, it's a big deal, but they're going to be trying to fix the classes that are affected by that directly. Anton's getting nerfed generally, and some classes are getting nerfed, but to compensate, Anton's getting nerfed as well. You know, with the defense shredding, and they're also trying to buff up other classes as well. And just a lot of reworks all across the board, guys. Epic reworks, character reworks, Anton reworks, new classes in the male Mage coming out, reworks in the farming system on how that works, a Luke raid, which the new raid content that's coming out, and new 90 epics, guys. Tons and tons and tons of stuff, and it's obviously really gonna be exciting. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. There's a little bit of update, a little bit of what's gonna be happening in the update. Here's a little bit of Morgan Freeman, and I'm gonna catch you knights later.